this article is entitled Asia in the 21st Century, but really this article, the main thrust and point of this article is China's rapid rise, and I certainly have been naive on this topic. According to IMF, IMF is close to God. According to IMF, this chart tells it all. The economic rise of China from 1997 to 2010, well, the chart just goes up, up, up. Meanwhile, Europe tending down, Japan tending a little less down, the USA tending down. China surpasses by far Japan, US, and Europe by 2010. Well, this is 2004. That's not far away. Now, I wonder, IMF is a very sophisticated organization, and one must respect their views if that's their view. This article does present a paragraph called Skeptics. And the skeptics think that, after all, what is the Chinese economy? What has happened? A communist country decided 20 years ago that the way to defeat the West was by the marketplace, to use capitalism. And so gradually the central controlling Communist Party has allowed limited free market in China and basically encouraged free enterprise and individual industry. The view of life is interesting here because the view of life is it's good to be rich. That wasn't the communist ideal. I think Marx and Mao, what would Mao say to that? Mao Zedong, as I think you call him. What would Mao say to that? The good of life is to be rich. Wow! And yet they have done it very well. The Communist Party has done it very intelligently. Everyone would agree. Always giving a little more leeway, latitude, but maintaining control. And from time to time, as they always do, bring down their fist to remind people that their control really is huge, is ultimate. Now, skeptics think that this mixture of free market and limited control is kind of unhealthy. And, of course, it depends always on the intelligence and the adaptability of those communist leaders. And if they make some bad mistakes, the consequences can be huge. But the fact is that China outproduces everyone. That the world is full of Chinese goods. The rise of China resembles that of Japan 40 years ago and Korea 40 years ago. They start with cheap goods, and gradually the quality of their goods rises as their economic power rises until they are producing high-tech stuff. That is exactly what happened in Japan in a very short time, and in Korea in perhaps an even shorter time. And that's exactly what's happened in China too. They begin with cheap goods, then low-tech stuff, and gradually increase sophistication. Now, of course, economically the key to their success has been cheap labor. 1.3 billion people working for very little. And so this is not fair, but the other countries, including South Korea, big businesses have done the only thing they could do, which is build factories in China, because thus they can take advantage of the low labor cost too. Well, this is a complex thing because, of course, this takes jobs away from the Japanese or the U.S. or the Koreans. If LG builds a big factory there, or in North Korea for that matter, that's a lot of jobs that are going to North Koreans or Chinese, not to South Koreans. This is a complex thing. But that's the way it has to be if things are going to work this way. Now, Another factor not dealt with here is basically the Chinese people. That is, China has this very large and expanding middle class. My guess is their middle class has 200 million people now. Of course, that's more people than are in Japan and Korea combined, and they make up the Chinese middle class. I'm guessing, but it must be around there. And of course, it's expanding constantly. More and more people want cars. We read that in a different article. Will this cause the Chinese some problems? Absolutely. The demand for a higher standard of living for more and more people will be accompanied by the demand for democracy. And there's the weak point. There's where things can go awry. If social disorders occur, agitations, disruptions, of course, the Communist Party is still the Communist Party, and they watch people closely. Agitators are arrested and disappear. In the old days, they would have been dead, and these days, because there are so many foreigners in China, eyes are everywhere, reporters are everywhere, and the Chinese government has to be a little gentler, let's say, a little more civilized, because a country like them playing in the global market has to constantly watch, China has to watch its image. Its image is everything. And if they're perceived as a basically North Korea, an economically powerful North Korea, this hurts China in ways that are subtle and profound. No. Thousands and thousands of Chinese are getting foreign educations in the U.S., everywhere. I remember being astonished a couple of years ago. A student of mine who has come here for many years is now a graduate student in the U.S. 3 years ago, she spent a year in Finland, and not even in Helsinki, but in, oh God, I don't remember the name of it, but anyway, in rural Finland, where she was the only Korean at a not small university. But there was a large community of Chinese there. Wow! That means they're literally everywhere. If we think the Koreans are everywhere, the Chinese are even more everywhere. Now, my point is that this has repercussions. This has ramifications. When these people, after spending years abroad, return home to China, they bring other attitudes. They bring more liberal, of course, attitudes. They bring a thirst for democracy, probably an impatience with the Communist Party, despite the economic miracle. All this will cause some agitation. And so the wisdom of the Central Communist Party must be not only economic, of course, but political, social. They have to show good judgment. They have to be very judicious, not only in allowing the free market to operate, but also allowing the circulation of ideas that are basically hostile to communism in any form to circulate, allow these things to circulate, allow free press. All this will require wisdom on the part of those Chinese leaders. I wonder what even they think of as the ultimate goal. I wonder if they regard democracy as the eventual establishment of democracy in China as inevitable. I suppose they do, because it's implied in their economy, it's implied in the whole direction that the country is taking. And it's even implied in China's entering the community of nations of the world. Because the nations of the world, all the economic powers, are all democracies. China alone is not. That will change. So to watch how this will happen, to see how wise the leaders are, to see if social agitations and disruptions occur, will be very interesting. But that's the only thing, I think, that will prevent China from from surpassing the U.S. by 2010, which is an amazing development.